Good morning, good afternoon. So my name is Sofia Redondo. Welcome. We're going to start our tour, a historical tour of Mexican San Jose, led by our professor, Gregorio Mora-Torres from San Jose State University. We're so happy to have all of you here today. So welcome, and we shall begin.
Are you guys ready? Ready to walk?
Yeah.
San Antonio's right there.
Oh.
San Antonio's right there. Should have told you about that.
Marked.
Okay.
I can estimate.
Yeah. Okay. If you look west in the direction over there, okay. This is really the center of the first Mexican settlement in California. It was founded November 27, 1777. Okay. And north to Santa Clara Street, okay, and south to San Carlos over here, okay, and then the western border is all the way to the Guadalupe River. So the formal name of San Jose is San Jose de Guadalupe, okay, and so Mexicans have been living here in this space since 1777. Okay. And initially it was a small population. The early founders, the first pueblo was actually founded where the old civic center was on the heading street. But that's where the confluence of two rivers meet, and so it tended to flood a lot. So they moved it a little bit to the south. And so this is the original place. And by the year 1800, you're gonna see that there's about maybe 200 people living here, all Mexicans, obviously, and indigenous people. And so, right to the north, there is see that the stone building. Okay. For a long time, that was the main library in San Jose. Right behind it is the first church that was built in San Jose, which was St. Joseph's Church. Okay, La Iglesia de San Jose. Okay, and that was founded around 1800. And obviously you can see that it's been knocked down by earthquake quite a few times. Okay? The cabildos was probably there at the corner of that building right there where the Bank of America building was. Okay? And that's also where they have the local jail. And if you look at the list of names, okay, there's all kinds of interesting people right here. And the little block you have above your map, okay, you gotta find that there's an incredible number of names that appear familiar to you, like Pachecos, Alvizos, Amadors, Suñols. Okay, these are early residents of San Jose. Okay, eventually the Mexican government, when Mexico became a free country. The Constitution of Mexico basically said that people had the right to petition for land. Okay? And so a lot of the old mission land was petitioned, and the rancheros were the first to ask for grants. So a lot of these people that are listed here actually had to move away because Mexican law said that if you get a grant, you have to live on your rancho. And you have to make sure that you occupy it, otherwise you're going to lose it. And so from here you see the Vallejos moving all the way up to Vallejo, to Santa Rosa. Some people ended up in Sacramento. A lot of people ended in Oakland, Peralta, and so on. The Pacheco moved on to Gilroy, but you have to occupy your rancho. Okay? And so this has been a Mexican place ever since then. Okay? By the year 1850, you have the United States taking over California, and initially you have a dual mayorship, where you have a dual alcalde, where you have an Anglo-American acting as mayor with a Mexican, and so they were able to maintain the peace. Okay, the Mexicans never really disappeared. They tend to live around this area where the old pueblo was located all the way into 1900s. Okay. And so this street right here that we're standing on, this is Calle Guadalupe, the street that we now call Market Street. Okay, and you're gonna find that the town reaches all the way to First Street. Okay, all the way to First Street over there. And so in the 1930s, you begin to see, actually 1900 to 1930, you begin to see a resurgence of people. You're gonna find that there are a lot of Mexicanos fleeing the Mexican Revolution from 1910 to 1920. You have a lot of Tejanos who are fleeing poverty in South Texas, migrating to San Jose for the first time. A lot of people from New Mexico, Arizona. In fact, you're gonna find that the Chavez family, this is the famous Cesar Chavez family, ended up in Central Valley, but by 1940, 44, 45, you have Cesar Chavez already living in San Jose. And so these are the old places that they used to hang out. Okay, if you look to the west directly, this is a new museum, the Tech Museum. But guess what? Guess who designed it? It's a Mexican. If you look at it's a Mexican colors. Okay, and right next to it you have the Civic Auditorium. And this is a place where Mexicans tend to gather ever since the 1940s, 50s. If you wanted to go and listen to the music of Pedro Infante, Jorge Negrete, big band music, this is the place to go. Okay, this is also a place where people who love boxing and wrestling used to hang out. I mean, this is a wrestling place, and keep in mind that today we go to I've never been there, but you have football, you have baseball, but there wasn't a lot of interest in that. What drew people to downtown San Jose was really wrestling, and there's a lot of Mexicans that are wrestling here. There was a guy by the name of Pepper Gomez.
Oh, Pepper
was
Gomez.
A hero.
In my era.
And Pepper Gomez, and then you have other people like the mean people was a Japanese guy, Chichi Chibuya. Okay, interesting guys, and they were the eternal enemies. Okay, but boxing and wrestling is really when you really see different multicultural groups, different ethnic groups coming together. If you go to the south, you're gonna see southern towns completely segregated. There is segregation here, okay? But in sports, you have Mexicans fighting Filipino boxers, Mexicans fighting Japanese wrestlers, okay, and so on. And then you have also quite a few Anglo-Americans. Pat Patterson, I don't know if you remember Pat Patterson. Ray Stevens.
Yeah, it was Ray Stevens.
Yeah, so these are all people that used to fight across California. And he used to draw, maybe every Wednesday night, Tuesday night, 400 or 500 people, 1,000 people sometimes. And then you have also boxing. San Jose has always been a place where, Mexicans have always excelled in boxing, and there are a lot of popular boxers. There's a guy, Johnny Molina, José Serna, and there's all kinds of other people that are local that could have become national champions. It's just that San Jose, that time was small area, and they didn't have the popularity that other places have. Anyway, to a little bit to the north, to the south, we're gonna be walking over there because I wanted to realize that we have a real problem today. We have the problem of gentrification with Google coming in and all those big high-tech companies. And I think that the big problem that we have is the fact that we may lose the cultural heritage of Mexicans and early peoples, because the Olones are also here. We need to acknowledge that. Okay? But in the 1990s, we had influential politicians who insisted on trying to bring back Mexican culture. So we're going to walk that way. But not before we go over here to the east. And if you look at the Starlight Ballroom. Okay, have you found it? Can you give me the address? 43 West San Antonio. It is that, where the little bridge is? That's where this is where the Starlight used to be. And again, you have people coming from all over the bay, coming to dance here within walking distance. Okay? In that area, it's also the place where by the 1960s, this barrio began to expand. It goes west over the river and north all the way to the airport. Okay, but much of the growth that takes place is going to go down south. Okay, so by the 1960s, the Mexicano barrio, it reached all the way to Virginia Street. Okay, and Virginia is not too far away from here, and so people used to call this El Centro, El Pueblo. Okay, and just imagine people walking from Delmas and Virginia downtown. This is a real dynamic Mexican town. Okay, and so we need to make sure that we look at this as a Mexican town. We need to make sure that this legacy doesn't go away, because, like I said, with Google coming around, everything's going to disappear. So let's go over and we'll talk a little bit about this statue that we have. Go all the way to the corner of behind right in front of Quetzalcoatl. Everybody. You guys are afraid of the sun?
¿Qué pasa?
Okay. It's working, right?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things you need to know about San Jose is that this is interesting, okay? Because Cinco de Mayo has been celebrated in San Jose ever since actually the Battle of Puebla. Cinco de Mayo. The celebration of Cinco de Mayo began in San Jose as far back as probably 1865. And the celebration has not really stopped until modern times. Before, they used to have the Cinco de Mayo parade on Santa Clara Street, but by the 1940s, the parade would begin on the corner of First Street and Santa Clara. They will basically parade all the way down to the corner of First Street and San Carlos. Then they make a quick right, and the viewing stands were right here. Okay. And every year they would elect a reina de Cinco de Mayo. And keep in mind that for young ladies, this is an incredible honor, because it's the first time that the entire community, Mexicano community, just imagine people come from Los Gatos, from Sunnydale, from Mountain View, Union City, Morgan Hill. They all congregate here to honor their queen, whatever her name is, and Majestad Claudia Primera or whatever. And so, she would be out here in front of, several thousand people. Okay? And so just imagine these parades going on ever since, the early 1860s. Initially there was small, but by the 1990s we were drawing 100,000 people. To the point that it became too expensive for the local organizers, but they had to commercialize it to get money from the big beer companies. And obviously it was a big expense because the police demanded $50,000, $25,000 to control the area during Cinco de Mayo. And keep in mind that the 6th of September is also another major event. Well, the same thing. Mexicans began to celebrate the 6th of September since probably the 1890s. Okay? And they follow the same parade every year in, year out. Okay? And so we can't forget that the history goes back thousands of years. So in the 1990s, there was a controversy the local mayor was a guy by the name of McHenry, and he wanted to glorify the conquest of California by Anglo-Americans, okay? To the point that he decided that he wanted to build a statue, and the first person to raise the flag here, a guy by the name of Thomas Fallon. And the Mexican population said, no way, Jose, this is not going to take place. And so he spent, I don't know, I think about $1 million to make that statue, okay? Chicanos fought hard, and that statue was never placed. He wanted to place it right in the middle of this area, which is kind of an insult to Mexicans, first because, you know, that's his whole estate, okay? And now he wants to go back and reconquer the place by setting up a statue like that. A compromise was eventually done in which he said, okay, if you allow me to put my statue, we will allow you to do something about your Mexican culture, okay? So Blanca Alvarado, who was one of the city councils at that time, really pushed the idea of going back to Mesoamerican history, okay? And so they finally hired a very well-known sculptor who came, and I think his name was Graham, but I can't remember his first name. And it's Robert Graham, okay? And so this guy decided to go to Mexico. He began to look at the images of Quetzalcoatl, okay? And he eventually came up with this idea, okay? Blanca wanted an elongated Quetzalcoatl that will basically go to the ground and extend it. He came up with this idea. Well, one of the local writers for the Mercury News thought that it was a piece of caca, and that's what he calls it nowadays. But to me, that's a sign of disrespect, okay? Because this is Quetzalcoatl, okay? You guys know what Quetzalcoatl is, right? You know, he represents Mesoamerican culture. In a way, the Mexicans, I would say, can trace back their cultural origins to Mesoamerica. And the idea here is that we're really a millenarian civilization along the lines of Chinese culture, along the lines of, Egyptian culture, Roman culture. Okay? And, we don't insult Apollo.
That concrete is exposed here on this side?
No, that's actually wear and tear.
Oh, wear and tear?
Wear and tear, yes. And I guess we need to do something to fix it up. We can't let it go down. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Tom McHenry was the mayor of San Jose at that time. The artist was Robert Graham, and Blanca Alvarado was one of the people who wanted the Quetzalcoatl statue. And Thomas Fallon is the statue that was done to honor the conquest of the United States of California that is in exile right now. This is a grizzly bear. I don't think that looks big, but grizzly bears are the biggest bears in California. It's the wrong. Basically, trying to organize farm workers in the Central Valley. And from 1940 all the way to 1960, he led quite a few number of strikes. All of them ended up in failure simply because the growers would always resort to hiring braceros. These are the Mexican workers that were being brought from 1942 to 1965. And the Mexican government agreement with the United States basically said that under no circumstances the braceros ever been used as star breakers. And here you have the growers using the braceros to break the strikes ever since 1950. So he eventually gave up. By 1960, he resigns, and he eventually comes to settle to live back in San Jose. By 1970, he began to publish for the first time children's bilingual books. He recognized the value of learning two languages, and so he used to come out with a series called Mini Libros, and he published that until he pretty much died in the 1980s, I think. Obviously, this is the second home for Cesar Chavez, and Cesar Chavez used to live in the barrio called San Si Puedes in the east side. But you know, if you follow the street all the way down to the east side, San Antonio will take you all the way to the east side. Okay. And so you have the second barrio. This is the first barrio over here. The second barrio is in the east, San Cipuedes, where Guadalupe Church is located at. And you can see people coming from the east side walking because there aren't a lot of cars here, and they will come to the Tropicana right in front of you. Imagine that, Tropicana right here. And so just remember that Cesar Chavez eventually began to work with the CSO right here. This is where he got his training. And a lot of Mexican Americans got the training with CSO, and eventually they go to Delano after Ernesto Gallarza gave up. And one of the things that Ernesto Gallarza did was to put pressure on Congress to get rid of the Bracero program. And he's one of the biggest proponents of the Bracero program, because he thought that as long as you have Mexican braceros competing with domestic workers are going to suffer because they're not going to get the wages that they deserve, because braceros were being used to pull down wages. Okay? So Cesar Chavez succeeded where Ernesto Gallarza failed. Okay, but then we're talking about different circumstances. But he's one of the people that we need to acknowledge. So again, 1990s, a lot of Chicanos want to make sure that the history of these people who contribute a lot to the history of San Jose and to the community are acknowledged. So 1990, we have this alleyway, which starts here and goes all the way to the entrance of San Jose State. And so this is known as the Galarza Alley. And if you look at the bottom, there's some quotes. So you see on the bottom, those are basically quotes by people who knew him. And this is what they think of him. So if you got the time, another time, you can come and read them and see what kind of comments they made about Ernesto Galarza. And so if there are people that we need to recognize, obviously, Ernesto Galarza is one of those people that we need to make sure that the history of San Jose recognizes. There are two great labor organizers that basically made their homes in San Jose. The first one was Ernesto Galarza. He's also one of the first Mexicans to get a Ph.D. in American history. And so Ernesto Galarza was born in Nayarit, Mexico state. And he represents the thousands and thousands of Mexicans that did the revolution. Another college in Southern California, but eventually he comes back to California and decided that he's wasting his time trying to become an academician and also government worker working for them. And they had to be careful when they went out there because bears were very abundant in this area, and obviously they would come and eat over here. So I'm sure that quite a few Californians ended up in their mouth. And they had to be careful when they went out there because bears were very abundant in this area, and obviously they would come and eat over here. So I'm sure that quite a few Californians ended up in their mouth.
Oh, you probably did. Who was it? I don't know. Oh, that's what they said. I didn't. No, I didn't. Oh, okay. I was like,
Like I said earlier, when San Jose was founded in 1777, obviously Mexicans are very Catholic, and when they needed to go to church, they would have to go all the way to the mission. So if you guys know where the mission is, in Santa Clara, by the airport, okay? And in winter, this area gets muddy and it's very difficult to travel. Just imagine if you're gonna get married, if somebody dies, you have to take them over there to get buried. Okay? So by 1800, the local population basically asked for permission to build a church, and they chose this site to build the first Catholic church. And so this is the Iglesia de San José de Guadalupe. And it's been here for a long time. Obviously, earthquakes have knocked it more than once. The first one was made of adobe. And so this is another church that was built in probably around the 1890s. Okay? Right across from us, this is really the cultural heart of the Mexican community. If you look at your little handout, look for Farmacia Internacional. First page. Okay? And the Flores Pharmacy. Okay? And so this is where the first Mexican pharmacy, homemade, not homemade, but Mexican product. The Liberty Theater. And if you look at the addresses, if the pharmacy is 97 South Market Street, okay, the Liberty Theater must be in the middle. Okay, and so you can see how close things are. Okay, and the Liberty Theater opened up around 1948, again to address the people's needs. They would show films every day, Monday to Sunday. Okay, and usually there will be two feature films that were shown. Again, these are films that are being made in Mexico, but not necessarily. There are also movies that are made from Spain, and they're also being shown here. And so just imagine hundreds and hundreds of people going to the pharmacy, going to the teatro, to the theater, okay, every Sunday. So you can see, just imagine hundreds of people walking down the street, back and forth. Because along the way, you're also going to find that there's a lot of restaurants where people go and eat. After Mass, they go to the farmacia, they wait around for a little while, then they go to the movies. And the movies will last from maybe 1 o'clock all the way to 8 or 9 o'clock. Okay? During the 1950s, they have hundreds of Mexican braceros coming downtown, from Milpitas, from Los Gatos, from Mountain View, from Gilroy, and they all congregate here. And so this is a very lively area for Mexicans. Okay, and so you have movies, again, Pedro Infante, the classic movies, Jorge Negrete, Antonio Aguilar, 1960s and 70s, Piporro. These are things that people see. One of the things you need to keep in mind, that there are a lot of Mexican American kids who learn Mexican culture by coming to the movies. They learn about the life of the charros, the countryside. They learn things about what is love, according to the Mexican traditions. And also you have a live show. Sometimes you have famous Mexican singers coming to perform also at the weekends. And so just imagine there's a lively area. To the back, two streets back, we have the Greyhound station. Okay? And the reason why the Greyhound station is because most people did not have cars at that time. And so their primary mode of transportation are the buses. So just imagine people coming from New Mexico, coming from Los Angeles, coming from Texas or from Mexico, the country. And they all come to San Jose, and they basically stop there and eat before they go find a place to stay. There are a lot of flop houses around San Pedro Street where they're gonna come in. Every year, the population of San Jose must have grown by maybe 20, 30,000 people. Not San Jose, but the county. And these are all farm workers that come in to work the seasons. They stay here maybe in June and go back to wherever they come from by September. Okay, and there are also canneries in this area. Okay, if you go to, if you look west, 2-3 streets down there to your left, that's where the Greyhound station is. You can see that it's very close to everything. The building right here is the tradition of the standard of building in San Jose, circa 1900 all the way to 1950. And then over here, this is a favorite hangout for Mexicanos because there used to be a lot of restaurants here. And so this is You have one of the first Mexican disc jockeys, the guy by the name of José. Ramon used to have his studio, an ice cream parlor. And so it was open to a lot of kids morning, all the way to 8 o'clock in the morning. They will stop, and then they will come back again around music. And so these people, they want to sell space because these people are entrepreneurs. They had to sell ad space for the programs to continue. And so Jose Alvarado was one of the most popular radio jockeys here. There are other people that are famous. Reyes Lopez Valenzuela, Lalo Caballero, Eduardo Gripatoni. These are all Mexican jockeys who have programs out there. Radio is big and very popular. Personalities, whenever you see them walking on the street, they think like they're gods. It is in this place where a young lady, young high school kid by the name of Blanca Sanchez fell in love with this radio star Jose Alvarado, and a few years later she ended up marrying him. And so we know her now as Blanca Alvarado, who eventually will become a member of the city council and eventually county supervisor. Again, like a lot of other people, Blanca is not a native. She's actually from Mexico, from Colorado, and came down in Santa Clara County in 1940. Okay? So just imagine in the 1920s all the way to the 1940s, you can see the San Jose segregated city. The Mexicans tend to hang out on Market Street. Anglo-Americans hang out on First Street. And so you have all these commercial stores that are out there, not really welcoming to Mexicans. Okay? So, and they tended to rarely ever meet. By the 1960s, everything begins to break down. That's because a lot of the stores that were very common and popular for San Jose begin to close their business because they can't compete against the shopping malls like West Valley and Valley Fair and all these other stores. So by 1950, much of downtown basically dying out, and obviously when whites are living in the area, you have Mexicans coming in and they're going over there and setting up a lot of stores. Shoe stores, restaurants, things that Mexicans are going to be able to buy, like jewelry, jewelry stores are also there. In the 1920s, all the way to the 1940s, you can see the San Jose segregated city. The Mexicans tend to hang out on Market Street. Anglo-Americans hang out on First Street. And so you have all these commercial stores that are out there, not really welcoming to Mexicans. Okay? So, and they tended to rarely ever meet. By the 1960s, everything begins to break down. That's because a lot of the stores that were very common and popular for San Jose begin to close their business because they can't compete against the shopping malls like West Valley and Valley Fair and all these other stores. So by 1950, much of downtown basically dying out, and obviously when whites are living in the area, you have Mexicans coming in and they're going over there and setting up a lot of stores, shoe stores, restaurants, things that Mexicans are going to be able to buy, like jewelry, jewelry stores are also there. Okay, if you look at the if you look at there are actually directories going back to the 1870s and 1880s. And some of the directories actually tell you where every person lives. One of the things that they have here is that there's a famous señorita, but they never give her a last name. Apparently everybody knows that she's basically running a prostitute house. But she appears on the list. It's common knowledge that but she doesn't have a last name. But most likely she runs a prostitute house. Okay. It's in this area. This would be on the corner of First Street and Santa Clara would be the starting point. So just imagine people lining up on both sides of the street, all the way down to San Carlos. So then people will go into the auditorium. But this is also an interesting place because the building that is being renovated is the old JCPenney store. Okay, and what's interesting about the JCPenney store is that it basically invites everybody. It's one of the national chains that doesn't care who they sell to. They want to sell clothes. And so Mexicans who come in every summer, and basically pack up to go back to Texas, go back to Mexico. Well, my friend over here is taping right now. He's a long-time Mexican-American Chicano?
Absolutely.
Or Mexican-American?
Both.
Mexican-American Chicano activist, a long-time educator. We're working into the school system and all that. But mostly in the last few years we have been trying to establish a La Raza Historical Society. And I think it's important for us to maintain the history and find ways to basically distribute it and make sure that a lot of people know about this history. And so we're doing work trying to recover the historical papers, the historical documents, photographs. Okay. Later on, we're going to talk about this one major magazine. We want to say a few words, Ramon, before we continue.
I'm Ramon
Just
Martinez, San Jose State, 1971. Chicano commencement #1. Anyway, been around a long time. I'm basically a school teacher, taught in many schools, and now I'm retired. And so all that time I met a lot of good people. And so that's what I do nowadays is collect historic stories, put them on video. This is all on RJ Martinez channel on YouTube, and that'll soon become La Raza Historical Channel. But anyway, just know that this will be there, and there's many other things. And I just wanted to say that as an old teacher, I'm always telling people I have two things always in mind. I'm always thinking of kids, young people in school, all the way from kindergarten to college students. They're young people. And all of the young people, regardless of race, color, they don't know that Mexicans have a history. And it gets really cruel at the younger level when little children are never told that their group never did anything. And so that's what we're about. And we're always working with all the existing societies, not to call anybody names, but we say, here's something related to your history. So we work with the Japanese American Museum, with the African American Museum, with the Italian Museum, and we give them stories, and we look for them to tell us stories about Mexican San Jose. So anyway, Dr. Mora-Torres, he has a list of everybody. We'll send you material. Thanks.
Tell them what kind of people you have interviewed. Tell them the people you have interviewed.
You remind me.
Jack Brito.
Yeah, all the old Chicano activists from the 1960s. We've done interviews with. One of the main activists back in the 1960s was a man named Jack Brito. People don't know him very well, but he was the man who, when the city council saw him coming, they said, "What do you want? Leave us alone." Okay. Then there's Sofia Mendoza, who was a mother of kids at San Jose High School, and she was the first one that began rabble-rousing about the way students were treated. And so all the old Chicano organizations come from those beginnings. One other thing that I was going to add, just as a point of humor, but you always got to have humor. He has us here in this historic area, and this is all the courthouse. But what we didn't point out is that building right there, for many years, was a restaurant called La Mordida. And if anybody understands what that means the bribe in Spanish. Somebody wants a mordida. They want a bite of your money. So, because of all the legal people joining with our people who are going to face them right there, they'd always say, they're here to give each other la mordida. It also means a bite to eat.
Okay. Roosevelt Junior High School in '68. So a lot of people that are from LA are always bragging about the walkout. The first one was in San Jose. Roosevelt Junior High School, '68. Okay. Anyway, right behind you is the courthouse, and this courthouse I haven't been there for a very long time. And the reason why it's famous is because quite a few things have happened there. The first one is that it's the place where Tiburcio lasted was sentenced to death. Okay? Tiburcio Vasquez is related to one of the first settlers who came to San Jose. His great-great-grandfather was one of the early founders of San Jose. 1781, he appears in the San Jose census. The family eventually moves to Monterrey, and so this Tiburcio Vasquez, the one that is really famous, was born in Monterrey, and he's famous because he becomes one of the first Chicano bandits. A guy who thought that the American judicial system was basically unfair, that the American justice was not really blind, it was biased, and so he became a bandit. He was actually captured in 1873-74 in Southern California. Was accused of killing a merchant from a town called Los Pinos over there by San Juan Bautista. He always maintained his innocence. He says, I have committed a lot of crimes, but I'm guilty. I'm not guilty with killing this merchant. Anyway, the jury didn't agree. A lot of people thought that he was guilty, and a lot of people thought that he was innocent. So he was sentenced to hang in 1875, and so he was hanged right in the back areas of the courthouse. Okay. Tiburcio Vasquez still has a lot of family members. He was buried at the Santa Clara Catholic Cemetery, and you can go look at his grave. Okay, you can see that it's well kept, it's well maintained. There's always flowers there. So obviously, there must be family members who still go and remember him, who still go visit him. Okay. Anyway, in 1970, there was a famous case of two kids, brother and sister, who committed adultery, and they were tried by a judge whose name was Gerald Chargan. And there was nothing. There was not, the crime was never contested. He accepted that he was guilty of adultery. But when he sentenced him, he said something that offended the Mexican community. He started talking about how Hitler was probably correct that some people needed to be killed because people like him deserve to die. And obviously that's an insult to Mexicans because he's sentencing them to death, like pretty much like Trump today. And so Chicanos began to rally. He had big organizations, had these big marches that started in San Jose, and they basically congregated around St. James Park. They could never really remove him, but eventually he retired. And it's one of the first attempts by Mexican American Chicanos to basically use their power of mass demonstrations to get people that they don't like. Okay? This place is also important because, like I said, there are a lot of people coming in every summer to work in agriculture. Just imagine, San Jose in the 1950s, a town probably no more than 75,000. Santa Clara, the city of Santa Clara, the city of Mountain View are even smaller. So it's basically all agriculture. Okay? And so they need thousands and thousands of workers to come in. And so this is where they come in every day. And there are a lot of flop houses around this area, around this parking structures. Okay? And if people did not have rides, they could go and walk. Just imagine coming in, getting up about around 5:30 in the morning, and they all walk into the park right there called St. James Park. And around St. James Park, you will find all kinds of trucks and buses waiting for people to be picked up so they could take them to work. Obviously, there's a lot of prostitution, a lot of public drunkenness, and a lot of bars, and so a lot of those people basically wasting the money that they earn in the fields every day, and they go every night to get drunk and basically waste it away, so they have to go back again the next day. But just imagine this is a pattern that exists for 30, 40 years. Every summer you have this area that's really busy. Today, gentrification is coming to the area. There's a lot of upper middle class townhouses in that area, and there's now a big conflict because there's also a lot of homelessness. And those middle class people want to make the park theirs, and they can't stand all these homeless people, the smell, that kind of addicted to drugs or drunkenness, and so they're putting pressure on the city to remove them. The question is, where are they going to go? Historically, this is a public park that has been used by a lot of poor people, including lots of Mexicans. Okay, so let's now walk to the early San Jose.